Welcome to this segment of Valiant Virginians. I'm Jeannie Nixon with Virginia Living Television. Today we'll be speaking with a very special guest, Captain Robert Lee Aston, who not only won a Silver Star Medal, but it took him 65 years to actually receive it. Dr. Aston, thank you so much for joining us. We understand that you are retired from the Army Air Corps. You're also a doctor, an author. Are there any more credentials on your long list of service in our nation?
I'm an old patriotic American.
Well, we want to thank you on behalf of Virginia Living Television and our viewers in Orange and Culpeper County for serving our country. We know that you were recently awarded the Silver Star Medal for your heroic efforts back in October of 1944. Can you tell us about that day?
It was my 16th mission. The target was a all petroleum distillery or refinery at Hamburg, Germany. Hamburg is considered a deep penetration because it's quite a distance into Germany from the western limits, plus that denotes that it's beyond the range of fighter support. The little, as we call them, the little friends that flew fighters to protect the bombers. And it was just beyond their range at that time, more or less. So on that day, we assembled our bomb group, 44th Bomb Group, which was leading one of the wings on the target. And we were assembling, which is the usual procedure, a very striking looking marked plane is, we form up on them. We formed up at about 20,000 feet altitude, well, say 15,000. It was a bad day for navigation and for flying anyway. They were towering cumulonimbus clouds, anywhere from 20,000 up to 30,000 feet or more. It made flying between the clouds very difficult, especially to assemble in a formation. When we got up there over the specific flasher, as it's called, which is a ground signal, we couldn't find the rest of our group. And we knew that everybody was having trouble. Well, we couldn't waste too much time circling around because we had to conserve our fuel. So the first pilot said to me, as the navigator, he said, can you take us to the target? Silly question. Of course I could. I'm a navigator. So he said, well, we can't wait any longer to find the rest of our group. We'll have to go, or else abort, one or the other. I said, no, let's not abort, let's go. So I took them all the way to Hamburg area. We saw another group of B-17s going in on another target. We didn't know what it was. We could, of course, hook onto them. Our problem with a B-24 Liberator is that it flies faster. We carry a bigger load, and also, well, we carry a bigger load, fly faster than they do. In fact, there have been times when we've flown on 3 engines along with a B-17 and still kept up with them. In fact, we had to cut out because we could still fly faster than they could. But anyway, so when we got to the target, our group leader, who was leading the formation, decided he got one wing from made up of other groups had passed through a different formation and scouted the other formation. So he decided to take our bomb group to a secondary target. With radio silence, we didn't know that, and we got to the target about 10 minutes late after our group had already gotten there, and we didn't know of his decision. As far as I was concerned, we still had to bomb the primary target. So when we got there, there were, a dozen or more B-24s scattered all over, no leadership, and they were just in disarray. So I knew where I was going, so I headed. They seemed to recognize, that fellow looks like that ship knows where it's going. And so I had my pilot, I told him to signal these other planes because of radio silence, signal them with the blinker. He signaled Morse code. We also shot some flares, follow me. So about 15 B-24s assembled on us and followed us in to the target. Now this is from the initial point where they were in disarray. They formed up on us as the lead ship. We went in, and the cloud coverage was starting to break up a little bit. We could get an occasional glimpse. From the initial point to the target, flak was intense. When I called bombs away to the bombardier, he dropped bombs on my word that we were right over the target, and all its followers dropped in on us. I said the flak was intense. There weren't any fighters because it was not a good day for flying. There were 3 ships blew right up off our wing. 2 of them exploded, direct hits from, no parachutes came out. They just plain blew up. The 3rd one was flying off our wing, and I counted about 7, maybe 8 parachutes as they went down. That's how intense they were. The lead ship is always the most susceptible to being hit, and the deputy lead. But anyway, when we came out of the target area, there were 12 ships following me. I took them out to the North Sea, and we flew along offshore all the way back to England. None of the ships were from my group at all. So they went to their bases, and we went to ours. When we got to what we have a debriefing, when they, at the end of the mission, they debrief the crew for their observations and what happened. I told my story to the intelligence officer who was debriefing us, and he said, that really, you deserve a medal for that. He said, and he named the Silver Star. He said, let me call the colonel over here. The colonel, Colonel Gibson, had been our commander, and he was he was transferred and promoted up to wing, which is a command post above bomb group commander. And he had been there when I arrived, and I had met him, and he knew me, or knew of me. when he said, let me get the command of Colonel Gibson over here. Colonel Gibson came over, and so we related it again. He said, I'm recommending you for the Silver Star. So that was fine, but somehow or other, I didn't get it right away, and I wasn't really worried about it. And furthermore, I was looking forward. I had gotten some of the commanding officers to sign to ship me out for pilot training just as soon as I finished and I shipped out right after February 6th, my last mission. I wasn't even thinking about whether I got the Silver Star or not. In fact, I didn't get one other Medal of Distinguished Flying Cross. I got a Distinguished Flying Cross, but I had a second one, and I hadn't gotten it. I wasn't thinking about that. I was really excited about getting into pilot training. So they whisked me off, and I got right into pilot training in March, actually flying. Then, like so many young men, they're thinking about when they get out, they're thinking about where they're going to school, what kind of job are they going to get, they're going to get married, have a family. Those are the things that, of course, then they have children, and that becomes their sole goal, to raise a family. So then they don't think about getting their awards from, oh, I should have gotten that, They don't think about that until old age. Mm-hmm. Well, I wrote the Air Force and asked them, where's my second DSC? They couldn't find any record of it. How about my Silver Star? Must be lost. We don't have the recommendation from Colonel Gibson or anyone else. So, fortunately, Colonel Gibson was still alive, and what happened to the papers? They've just got lost in the administration. Lots of clerical error. I run into that with a lot of the veterans that I file claims for. So it wasn't any great surprise. So Colonel Gibson was still alive. He remembered me. And in fact, we had a 200th celebration before he left. And when I was talking to Colonel Gibson, he was in Dallas, Texas, he said, Lee, were you one of those fellows that threw me in the pond that day? And I said, no, sir, I'd never do that to a colonel. And, officers had all taken off their rank. So we were all the same level. But anyway, he said, I'll be glad, I remember, I'll be glad to sign a new recommendation for you. So he did. I got 3 more, another brigadier general. Well, Colonel Gibson was a brigadier general by then. I got 2 brigadier generals and a colonel and a captain, that were still alive. Colonel Gibson, well, he was brigadier general. Colonel Gibson died about 6 months later. But thank goodness he was still living, and he gave me a new recommendation, wrote it out again. And
Dr. Aston, can you share with our viewers what the DSC award is, and also
DFC?
Yes, sir. And what the Silver Star medal, how you earn that medal?
I don't have a copy of the citation. That was the one there. The key word for Silver Star, for the Distinguished Service Cross, and for the Medal of Honor is gallantry. Gallantry is the key word. It has to be in the citation. As you, I think, have already said, the Silver Star is the 3rd highest. It's just under the Distinguished Service Cross, which is just under the Medal of Honor. In each case, it has to be just a little bit more gallantry bravery, valor to get to the next one. Well, I related why I got it on that October 30th Hamburg mission. I had already gotten one Distinguished Flying Cross, which is the next medal down from the Silver Star. But I also got an Oak Leaf Cluster to the Distinguished Flying Cross, and that was for a couple more missions, which were outstanding, but they didn't rate any higher than the Distinguished Flying Cross.
If I understood you correctly, the reason that you were not awarded your medals when you made the achievement is because you went into flight school, everybody was busy?
The reason was because of a clerical error, administrative error.
Okay.
They just simply lost. Well, my records, like a good many of them, are deposited into St. Louis, Missouri. They had a fire there in 1975. They said mine were destroyed. I don't know whether it was in the records back then, the original recommendation or not. But I had to go through the whole process over again.
Okay. Well, when October the 18th, 2008 rolled around,
Almost 60 years.
60 years waiting. I believe the paper reported 65 years.
Oh, okay.
So it must have been a sweet day for you to finally receive the award that you earned many, many decades ago.
It had become more important later on in life, yes. And it was great. And I was tickled to death to get it.
I bet. Can you tell us a little bit about that day last year when you received the medal, finally?
I'm a director of the 44th Bomb Group, and I'm the director responsible for awards, memorials, and decorations. I arrange for them even posthumously. Sometimes there's been a couple of cases where by the time I got the award for him, the man died the next day or two. I visited some veterans in hospitals and on their deathbed, so to speak, and have even arranged for bedside award, have some Air Force colonel come and present the medal to the man in the hospital.
Can you share with us your medals?
Sure.
Captain Aston, please tell us about this medal.
This is the Air Medal. It's comparable to the Army's Bronze Star. I was awarded the Air Medal, 7 of them. This on the ribbon has a Silver Star, which is the equivalent of 6, and the Bronze Star is equivalent to 1. So besides this one, I had 6 more. This is kind of the low medal on the totem pole. This is the Presidential Unit Citation, which was we received 2 presidential citations for outstanding missions. One, the first one was to Hamburg. It was not the same Hamburg mission that I flew. It was an earlier one, and I was not on that, but I was still entitled to wear it. This one is to the Ploesti oil fields and refinery in Romania, which supplied 30 to 40% of the fuels to the German war machine. I just wanted a Distinguished Service Cross, which is next to the Medal of Honor, for a man who was a lead pilot to a target. Just in February, he was awarded the Distinguished Service Cross. And incidentally, that's the second Distinguished Service Cross that I've won for a veteran, World War II veteran. Um, and I will say, I've got one that I really want to win, and that's for a Vietnam veteran for the Congressional Medal of Honor. It's really tough. It shouldn't take as long. It's been in the process now for about 3 years. And he's hoping he'll live long enough to get it. Of course, he's a lot younger than I am, being a Vietnam veteran. This one here is a Distinguished Service Cross, a Distinguished Flying Cross, excuse me. I have 2 of them. This little oak leaf cluster indicates it's the second one. The same thing as with the Air Medal. You get a bronze oak leaf cluster on your ribbon for every additional one you get, if you get. Usually 2 or 3 are about as high as most people ever get. That's not true. I know a lieutenant colonel that was a navigator in the Korean, and I think maybe, well, in the Korean War. He's got about 14 of them, and I think they must have just been handing them out like they were candy. This, of course, is the one that this interview is all about, is the Silver Star. This was the October 30th, 1944 mission that I had to wait 65 years to get. This is the Legion of Honor, which is France's highest medal, combat medal. We got this for my war effort and missions to, from the ambassador in Washington, D.C. For my combat in World War II.
That's beautiful. How does it feel to have won so many medals?
Well, there's other people won a lot more medals than I have. Audie Murphy, for one.
Why do you think that it's important for veterans to receive these awards, even if it's posthumously? I understand that you do pro bono work for
Yes.
war veterans.
Yes.
Because obviously you believe it's important that they receive the medals that they've earned.
Well, sure. Probably more important than a bequest in the will. To some people, it depends on the bequest of the will. I've had several million, and maybe not, but, and it's important to their families too. The families feel that it is important that their loved one should get something that he should have gotten, and I think that's reason enough. It's important to them, and I feel the same way because I've more or less been through this. Didn't get what I want, what I should have gotten. So, and I've done 63. I've won 63 cases, claims for veterans so far. Never lost a one.
Well, if I ever need a lawyer, I think I'll call you.
Okay.
You have a good track record.
Yeah, I sure have. And knock on wood, and thanks the Lord.
That's great.
I've had a very charmed life, and I attribute that to the Lord.
It gives you strength to keep going.
Right.
Can you tell our viewers what it was that motivated you to volunteer with the Army Air Corps? I assume when you were probably about 18?
Yes. There's a war on. That's the time to be patriotic. And I was single, young. I had no dependents. My mother was the only one that, and I had been her dependent, so she didn't need, I wasn't her dependent anymore. No, I come from on both sides of my family, very early Americans. My mother's family was here 150 years before before July 4th, 1776. And we were colonial Englishmen then. But that's, and they've been in all the wars. American Revolutionary War, I know of about 12 ancestors who were in the American Revolution. I belong to the Sons of the American Revolution. The War of 1812, they've been, and unfortunately they were on both sides of the North and the South, but I only claim the South side.
Well, it sounds like you have a great love for your country, and that is why you chose to serve your country. And you mentioned that we were at war, and of course, we are still at war in a different part of the world, but we don't always see young people stepping up.
I'm too old to volunteer now.
Well, probably.
Oh,
But
no doubt.
can you give me an idea of what exactly you believe has been the greatest benefit to you personally in having served our country?
I think that that's a good question, and I'm not really sure in one or two words just what the benefit is. But I have two sons, and neither one's been in the military, and I wish they had been. I think military training is a very important part of a male's life, more so than a female, to make them men, responsible men. And you learn discipline, you learn teamwork, and you learn how to work, you learn how to take orders. When you become an officer, you learn how to give orders as well as take orders. So if you're going to get married, you've got to learn how to take orders.
You're too funny. Okay. Well, so you would suggest the military experience for young people graduating from high school or college?
Definitely.
It prepares you for life. You obviously have been very motivated throughout your lifetime, having served in our military forces, getting 10 college degrees, is that correct? 8?
8.
8 earned degrees, and 3 of those are PhDs, doctorates.
No, 3 of them are doctoral. The law degree is not a PhD, and I've got 2 law degrees. I have a Doctor of Engineering, which I got from the University of Missouri, and then a PhD, which I earned in England.
And I understand that you've also been a business owner, an attorney at law, served in the military. You have exhibited a great deal of self-discipline to accomplish the things that you have in your life. And do you give the majority of the credit for that to the military or to your upbringing?
To my upbringing. My mother was I owe a lot to her for planning and to guide me in my life, and so I listen to my mother. I find all this talk about that children reach an age where they know more than their parents, but that might be true in my senior years, but no, my mother had been through a lot, and I listened to her, and I took her advice most of the time.
So you worked hard throughout school, according to your mother's advice, and you went into the military, but I assume it was not your mother that kept you going all these years, continually seeking a higher education. I understand you've also authored a book, or two books.
Two books, two law books, yes. The first one was written in England, published by Imperial College of England, and that's because I was doing I was working on a PhD in England. So that law book was published over there, but it still was of use because it was about environmental law in UK, Canada, and the United States. But my second book, which was just came out in 2004, it also was an environmental law book. It was used as a teaching text in 35 American universities, and it's still going. This past fall semester, it was still being used as a textbook, but it'll have to fall to some other newer book, as all books do.
Sure. In this time that America is at war, and Americans are split on how best to address safety and peace for all people, a lot of people believe that we should just sit and talk across the table and have peace talks, and then other people believe that our strength is in our ability to protect and defend our country. Do you have any feelings you'd like to share about what you believe is best for the defense of America?
I'm not sure I want to relate them. They're very strong feelings. I'll only say that I think you can bargain or talk to an adversary if you're dealing from strength. If you're weak, I don't think you can't be as strong in dealing with them if you're weak militarily. So I'd say it behooves us to be strong militarily.
I agree with that. Do you?
I don't say that to be a bully.
Right.
But the other side's not going to back down as easily if they know you got some muscle.
Right. Do you have a message for young people that may be considering going into the military when they graduate?
Well, I think they should consider it. I don't say they should necessarily do it. They have to look at the various options that they have and consider where they're going, what their goal is, and whether this can be part of the overall scheme or not, if they have time for it. I feel that when they come to a crossroads to make a decision, they should pursue education. But I think that they should consult with one of the greatest teachers that there's ever been on this earth. I think they should consult with Jesus Christ as to whether, and let the Lord do the planning of their lives for it, and be open to whatever He offers. He's a heck of a lot better planner than most people, all people. So I think that's something that they ought to consider.
What does it mean to you to be an American?
Well, I mean, it's a great privilege, I suppose. I take it very much for granted, these privileges. Perhaps if I lived in some other country that was not as privileged, I might feel very much different. But I'm very proud of my ancestors who fought to establish this country, and I feel a great gratitude to them for what they've done. I do take exception with Tom Brokaw. He said that this generation, I guess, speaking of World War II, I believe that generation, that it was the greatest. I don't feel that it was the greatest. I think the greatest generation was the American Revolutionary War, where they marched barefoot in the snow. They had to get home to take in crops, and they had those that lived on the frontier, and I know some of my ancestors lived on the frontier at that time, and they had to, their wives had to trade with the Indians, trade wheat and for deer, for venison, for meat while their husbands were gone, and they had, and there was also attacks by the Indians because the British were using the Indians largely to harass and kill the Americans. So I think that is the greatest generation, not ours. I suppose I'm very privileged to be an American.
Yes, I believe we all are privileged to be Americans. Do you believe that the world is a better place because America stepped in World War II?
Yes, I think Europe was fighting a losing battle, so I think it's very obvious that it's a better place because without us they were losing, and with us we all won. So yes, the answer is yes. The world's a better place.
Well, we really appreciate you stepping in and answering the call of duty. As you know, not everyone does, and I'm always thankful for our men and women who are willing to sacrifice so much on behalf of others.
There's one thing I'd like to say, if I may. We had a reunion of my crew. When I called the bombardier to invite him to come to our reunion, during the conversation, he said to me, he said, "Are you as religious as you always were, or as you were back then?" I said, "Yes, even more so." I didn't know I had that image with any of my crew or the officers of my crew, but I do recall distinctly that when we were supposed to wear flak suits, and which is a vest you put on, plus you can put on more, and I put it on my first mission before you get to the target area, and I never wore it again. 34 missions I went without it. I only did it because it was regulation that time. Of course, I don't mean that I was breaking regulation, but my thinking was that if I'm praying to God to protect me, and I believe He's going to, I don't need that flak suit. So I never wore it again. I never got hit. I had a couple wounded men on my crew. Came back with the ship like a sieve, but none of them hit me. And I've had a shrapnel from flak dig in right next to me and stop. The greatest experience I had was that the Lord was with me. I put my head out in a window. It's not a flat glass window, it's a rounded window. So you can stick your head out and see. I stuck my head out and looked took back at, and a millisecond after I pulled my head back, a piece of flak went right through one side and went right out the other side. Wow. I've been really protected.
Well, it's clear that God has protected your life. You're soon to have an 85th birthday.
Yes, and I don't know how much longer he's going to give me, but whatever it is, he's calling it, so it's all right with me.
Captain Aston, we really appreciate you welcoming us to your home today at the Rapidan Station in Rapidan, Virginia. We look forward to you returning to Virginia, and we'll hopefully be able to speak with you again.
Back. This station was built in 1853. It got burned down partially, and so I had to rebuild it. But at that time, it was the Orange and Alexandria Railroad that went from Culpeper to, well, it hooked up with Culpeper to Gordonsville. But anyway, so it's been my pleasure, and I thank you very much for celebrating with me.
The pleasure is all ours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this segment of Valiant Virginians. I'm Jeannie Nixon here at Rapidan Station with Captain Robert Lee Aston. Thank you for joining us for this segment.